Have you ever sent someone on an errand or asked someone to do something for you, and 20 minutes later, what you have in your hands or the feedback you get is a complete difference? It's completely different from what you communicated, and you're wondering what happened. Communication. The weight or the work of communicating properly lies on the person who is initiating the conversation. So if I am talking to you and I'm passing information across to you, it's my responsibility to see to it that you understand what I'm saying. If I assume I say something to you, and of course what I'm saying is clear to me, and I talk to you, and I assume that I've passed the information across to you, and I just move on. Many times, it will just so happen that the action I was expecting or the results of this communication will sometimes turn out to be completely different from what I intended. What is responsible for this? The reason for this is that until I confirm from you that you understand what I have said, then that communication is not yet complete. So, when I'm talking to you, I am passing information across to you, it's my responsibility to seek feedback from you. I ask the question, do you understand what I have said? Or I could say, can you rephrase what I've just said? So at that moment, we both agree that we are on the same page, that we agree on the same terms. The language I'm using, you understand it. The assumptions I have are well grounded by your feedback to me. So it so happens sometimes you could have arguments come up. I said this and you did this. And many times we are tempted to blame the other person that it's his responsibility or it's their responsibility for not understanding what we have said. But the reverse is the case. In proper communication, it's our responsibility to ensure the person we are speaking to understands what we are saying. In other words, the communication is not complete until we both agree that what I have said, you understand. That makes it complete. So if I say a thing to you, I will ask, do you understand? And what usually happens is there's a disconnect. You now realize that what the words you are using, we are not well understood by the other person. Sometimes there are differences in language understanding. There are differences in word meanings, difference in word usage, depending on culture, upbringing, education, and what have you. So sometimes you realize you thought you are saying something, but the other person is hearing something else completely different. So it's always good. Check for feedback. Get feedback. Ensure you're on the same page to avoid stories that touch the heart. So, talking about communication, there are 30 elements you need to ensure they're on ground. Okay, so I want to talk to someone, talk to you. Of course, I already have the message I want to pass across in me. So, I am the sender of this information. I have the content, I have the message I want to pass across to you. So, I have to decide on the channel, the means of passing this message across to you, either verbally, written word, on phone, an email, a message, a chat, as the case may be, a video message. the channel, I decide the channel. The channel now is dependent on the proximity I am with you, the receiver of this information, and some other factors, environment, convenience, as the case may be. And you, the receiver of this information, also receive this information, and your it's dependent on your ability to access this channel, for instance. So if I want to send an email to you, and if, for instance, you don't have a phone that is enabled, you don't have a smartphone that can receive email instantly, then I could as well just be talking to myself, right? So those are the things that I need to put into consideration. Then you also need to consider the person, my audience. So if I'm talking to someone, I'm able to know the language the person understands, and I speak in the person's language. So that's why using impressive words or high sounding words doesn't mean I'm communicating properly. If the person I'm talking to doesn't understand what I'm saying, I could as well be saying gibberish, right? So if I'm talking to someone who, for instance, if I'm talking to a young person, maybe someone just out of high school, for instance, okay? His level of understanding or level of use of the English language is at a particular level. So I should be able to gauge this person and talk in a language he can understand. You know, it is said that you talk as though you're talking to an 8-year-old, right? That if whatever you're trying to explain, if it cannot be easily understood by an 8-year-old, then you need to work on breaking it down further. So there's no use using words that are so that you have to go check a dictionary to know it, right? So you don't need to use such words just for purpose of communicating. So communicating is not an avenue to show off or show how knowledgeable you are or how well versed you are in the English language. It's just use simple, proper tenses, simple words that everyone can understand. That's the purpose of communication. So communication is passing a message across so that people can act on it, people can be informed, people can be motivated, entertained, depending on the purpose for why we were communicating. So I should use words that you will understand. Another scenario, let's say I get to a rural area, for instance, and probably those who live in that area use their dialect, and I come in speaking English. It serves no purpose. They don't understand what I'm saying, so I won't achieve anything. I won't achieve the purpose of talking. So before you communicate, before you open your mouth, or before you start the process of communicating, you should be able to understand who you're going to be talking to, where they are, their ability to access this information in the way you want to pass it across before you now start the communication process. So bottom lines, we should understand that communicating simply is talking, passing a message across to someone else in a manner this person can understand it. So if the communication is from me to you and you do not understand what I am saying, then it's not two-way communication, which is what we're talking about here, two-way communication. And that is when this communication makes any sense. I'm not broadcasting. I'm not like, yes, so if I'm broadcasting a message from a radio station or a television station, for instance, or an internet radio channel, as the case may be, then feedback may come later. But for the purpose of our conversation, we are doing two-way communication. I'm talking to you, you're talking to me. So if I talk to you in a language you don't understand, then it defeats the purpose, because the reason why we are communicating is so you can understand and act on the information I'm passing across. So if the language I'm using does not sit well with you, in other words, you don't understand it, then no work done, zero work done. So that is how communication should be looked at, as it's just simply a process of passing information and getting others to act on what we want to do. So it's not an avenue to show how knowledgeable you are and all that. So communication is something we should look at. And like I said earlier, when you start the communication process, examine the channel you're going to be using, examine the person you're going to be talking to. Does this person understand the words you're going to be saying? And before you end the communication process, get feedback, ascertain that this person understands what you've said. And a situation where you're making a request, it's very important that you understand this person understands you. Get it that the person understands what you're asking for. You'll be surprised things that happen when you make a request of someone thinking this person understands, and lo and behold, something else shows up on your doorstep. So let's examine our communication process for a more interesting interaction with each other. See you next week.